My yard looks like a construction-themed crime scene. Orange paint, yellow tape, and stakes everywhere. I stand on my porch, staring at my violated oaks, the morning sun glinting off the spray paint like a taunt. My coffee's cold now, and so is my mood. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. It was a crisp Tuesday morning, the kind where the air smells like fresh grass and your coffee's just the right temperature. I'm lounging on my porch in Meadowbrook Estates, a suburban hellscape where the HOA rules like a petty dictatorship over every mailbox and blade of grass. My name's Jake, 38, proud owner of a corner lot with 2 acres of wooded bliss. My personal Eden, complete with 150-year-old oaks that have seen more history than the entire HOA board combined. I've spent 8 years turning this place into my private space, complete with a hammock, a fire pit, and zero tolerance for neighborhood busybodies. Then, out of nowhere, my paradise gets invaded by a pack of surveyors treating my backyard like it's their personal sandbox. One way or another, it started with the orange spray paint. I'm halfway through my coffee, still in my bathrobe, when I spot neon X's defacing my ancient oaks, like someone decided my trees needed a makeover from a discount graffiti artist. My first thought, vandalism. My second, who the hell has the audacity to trespass on my property at 8 a.m.? I throw on jeans, march outside, and find Gary, a wiry guy with a clipboard and the smug confidence of someone who thinks paperwork makes him God. Morning, Gary chirps, as if he's not standing in my backyard uninvited. Just doing some measurements for the new access road. I blink, coffee mug still in hand, wondering if I misheard him. Darned. Access road? What are you talking about? Gary consults his clipboard like it's the Oracle of Delphi. The HOA's building a road from Meadowbrook Drive to the community center. Didn't you get the notice? Notice? I laugh, the kind of laugh that's half disbelief, half murder fantasy. Gary, this is my backyard. You don't just build roads through private property. He hands me a photocopied document, his face radiating the patience of a saint explaining gravity to a toddler. The HOA has an easement through your lot. It's in the deed restrictions from 1987. Construction starts next month. An easement? My brain short circuits. This is my home, my land, my escape from the world's nonsense. And now some faceless board of clipboard-wielding Karens thinks they can carve a highway through it? The paper's a mess of legal jargon, lot lines, coordinates, terms like ingress and egress that sound like a medieval torture device. But the gist is clear. The HOA claims they can legally bulldoze my land for community benefit. This is a mistake, I say, handing it back, my voice steady but my grip on the mug dangerously tight. I never agreed to this. It's part of the original subdivision plat, Gary says, shrugging. The HOA can use it for community improvements. Community improvements? I scoff. Like ruining my property value and turning my backyard into a parking lot. Gary mumbles something about not making the rules and goes back to measuring my lawn, sticking little flags in the grass like he's claiming it for the HOA empire. So, I spend the day on the phone, chasing answers. The HOA office is closed for lunch at 10 a.m., shocker. The county planning department puts me on hold so long I start memorizing their elevator music. My lawyer, Rebecca Chun, is in court until Thursday, leaving me to stew in my own rage. That evening, I sit on my back porch, the quiet of my woods mocking the chaos in my head. A road. Through my land. For a community center nobody uses because it's a glorified storage room for Linda Morrison's ego. Linda, by the way, is the HOA's property manager, a woman whose smile could curdle milk and whose life's mission seems to be making homeowners miserable. I've had run-ins with her before. $100 fines for unapproved flower beds, passive-aggressive notes about my trash cans being visible for an hour after pickup. This road thing, though? This is war. I dig out my property deed and start Googling easements, my dining room table turning into a war zone of highlighters and post-its. By midnight, I'm neck-deep in legal forums, learning words like adverse possession and quiet title. The HOA might have their fancy documents, but I've got something they don't, a stubborn streak wider than the road they want to build. They've picked a fight with the wrong guy, and I'm not about to let a bunch of power-tripping bureaucrats ruin my home without a brawl. This is just the beginning. Meadowbrook Estates is about to learn that Jake Johnson doesn't roll over for anyone, not even an HOA armed with clipboards and bad intentions. 2 days after the surveyors turned my backyard into a neon orange crime scene, my dining room looks like a conspiracy theorist's fever dream. Papers are strewn across the table, my laptop's overheating from endless tabs on property law, and my wife, Emily, has dubbed it the Situation Room, with a mix of amusement and concern. "Jake, you're one step from pinning yarn to a corkboard," she teases, eyeing the highlighters and coffee mugs piling up like casualties of war. I've spent 48 hours diving into the cesspool of easement laws and HOA regulations, fueled by rage, caffeine, and the sinking realization that the Meadowbrook Estates HOA thinks they can pave over my oaks with nothing but a dusty document and a superiority complex. Thursday morning, I'm in Rebecca Chen's law office, a place that smells like old leather and shattered dreams. Rebecca's my lawyer, a sharp woman with a no-nonsense vibe and a knack for delivering bad news like it's just another Tuesday. She's reviewed the easement document, my deed, and the HOA's rulebook, and her expression says it all. "Buckle up, buddy, this is gonna hurt." "The easement's legitimate," she says, sliding a stack of papers across her desk like she's serving me a subpoena from my own backyard. "Recorded in 1987, part of the original subdivision plat. The language is vague enough to cover road construction for community benefit. I feel like I've been slapped with a wet fish. I bought this house 8 years ago, Rebecca. Nobody said a word about an easement. Not the realtor, not the title company, nobody. Easements run with the land," she says, leaning back in her chair like she's explaining why the sky's blue. "They stick with the property, disclosed or not. Should have been in your title report, but," she shrugs, and I picture some overworked clerk in 2017 tossing my disclosure packet in a shredder to make happy hour. Sometimes things slip through. "Slip through?" I scoff, my voice climbing. "Like my entire backyard." Rebecca's unfazed. "You've got options, but they're not cheap. Challenge the easement's validity. Prove it was misrecorded or abandoned through non-use. Or argue the road exceeds the easement's scope or causes unreasonable damage to your property. And how much will that set me back?" I ask, already dreading the answer. She doesn't blink. $50,000 to $100,000 minimum. Months of litigation, expert witnesses, surveys, title research. And no guarantee you'll win. Her honesty is both refreshing and infuriating, like a doctor telling you the surgery might kill you, but it's your only shot. I leave her office feeling like I've been mugged by a gang of HOA board members wielding clipboards instead of knives. The HOA's betting I can't afford to fight, that I'll roll over and let them turn my land into a shortcut for Karen's SUV. They've underestimated my stubborn streak, which is wider than the road they're planning. That afternoon, I hit the county courthouse, a gray building that smells like dust and despair. I spend 3 hours hunched over microfilm and faded plats, my eyes burning from deciphering 1980s typewriter font. The subdivision plat is a maze of lines and legalese, but buried in the fine print is a gem. The easement is for utilities and emergency access only, not community improvement projects or Harold Wimpton's midlife crisis. Emergency access. I photocopy the page, my heart pounding like I've unearthed buried treasure. Next, I storm the HOA office, where Linda Morrison reigns behind a desk that looks like it was designed to intimidate peasants. Her blonde bob is so flawless it's practically a felony, and her smile could make a saint punch a wall. "I need to speak to the board about this road," I say, dropping my document stack on her desk with a satisfying thud. Linda barely glances up from her computer, where she's probably drafting fines for unapproved mailbox colors. Board meets third Tuesday of the month. Submit a written request for the agenda. Third Tuesday. Linda, they're starting construction in 3 weeks. Board schedule is set, she says, her smile sharpening into a blade. They'll hear your concerns at the appropriate time. Appropriate time? Like my backyard's destruction is a minor inconvenience between her Pilates class and her daily power trip. I lean in, voice low but dripping with venom. Linda, this easement is for emergency access only. The board's breaking their own rules. She doesn't flinch. Our legal counsel has reviewed everything. They know what they're doing. Oh, do they? I leave a formal request for an emergency meeting, knowing she'll probably use it as kindling. Back home, I start calling board members. Most don't answer. Shocker, but I get Harold Wimpton, the board president, whose voice oozes the smugness of a man who's never heard no without a lawyer present. The road's approved, Mr. Johnson, he says, like he's reading from a script titled How to Be a Condescending Jerk. The easement's valid. Construction's on schedule. Have you read the easement, Harold? It's for emergencies, not your vanity project. Our counsel's reviewed it, he snaps. It's broad enough for community improvements. Then hold an emergency meeting. If it's all legal, what's the harm? His laugh is colder than a February wind. We don't call emergency meetings for every homeowner with a complaint. He hangs up, and I'm left staring at my phone, imagining his smug face on a dartboard. I spend the evening on my porch, the cricket's song clashing with the war drum in my head. My oaks loom like silent sentinels, unaware of the bulldozers plotting their demise. The HOA thinks they're untouchable, ruling Meadowbrook like petty tyrants with better letterhead. But I've got a stack of documents, a lawyer on speed dial, and a grudge that could outlast their entire board. They want to play dirty? I've got dirt of my own, and it's about to hit their fan. The HOA thought they could steamroll my backyard and my sanity with their emergency access lie, but they forgot one thing. I'm not the only one in Meadowbrook Estates sick of their clipboard tyranny. By Friday, I'm no longer just Jake, the guy with the defaced oaks. I'm Jake, the guy with a cause, a stack of county records, and a neighborhood ready to revolt. Turns out, when you tell people the HOA is planning to carve up private property like it's a community potluck, they start wondering whose yard is next on the chopping block. I start with the Hendersons, my next-door neighbors, who've lived here long enough to have their own HOA horror stories etched in stone. Over coffee in their kitchen, which smells like fresh-baked cookies and quiet resentment, Tom Henderson leans back in his chair, his flannel shirt straining against his beer gut. They fined me $200 for planting tomatoes, he says, shaking his head. Said vegetables were inconsistent with the community aesthetic. Like my backyard's supposed to look like a golf course. Susan, his wife, chimes in, her voice sharp as a tack. Don't forget the Johnsons' navy blue door fiasco. $500 fine because it wasn't the approved shade of dark blue. I swear, Linda Morrison measured it with a color wheel. It's clear the HOA's been flexing their petty power for years, treating homeowners like serfs who forgot to bow. The road project is just the latest middle finger from a board that thinks community means whatever we say goes. I spend the next week knocking on doors, my pitch honed to a fine edge. Hi, I'm Jake. The HOA's trying to build a road through my backyard without permission. Here's proof they're breaking their own rules. Want to help stop them before they target your place next? The response is electric. Neighbors I've barely spoken to. People who wave politely while secretly judging my unmowed lawn. Turn into allies faster than you can say, HOA overreach. Mrs. Patterson, an 80-year-old widow 3 houses down, is practically ready to storm the HOA office with her cane. Back in my day, she says, her voice crackling like dry leaves, you had to ask permission to set foot on someone's land. This board acts like they own our souls. By Sunday, I've got 43 households on board, a list scrawled on a legal pad that's starting to feel like a battle roster. But it's not enough to just grumble. We need a plan. Enter my dream team. Sarah Martinez, a retired paralegal with a nose for legal loopholes. Bob Chun, a civil engineer who can spot a drainage issue from a mile away. And Maria Santos, a teacher with a knack for organizing chaos. We meet in my living room, surrounded by pizza boxes and my ever-growing pile of documents, plotting like we're about to overthrow a small dictatorship. Sarah's our legal eagle. The HOA's governing documents require a community vote for any project over $50,000, she says, waving a copy of the bylaws like it's a smoking gun. This road's budgeted at $125,000. No vote, no notice, no dice. Bob's next, his engineer's brain already 3 steps ahead. The road cuts through wetlands behind your house, Jake. They need EPA and state permits. I checked, there's nothing on file. They're walking into a federal violation. Maria, our logistics queen, has already set up a phone tree and a barebones website to keep everyone updated. We've got 60 households now, she says, her eyes gleaming. And a petition to force an emergency board meeting. Let's make Harold sweat. Meanwhile, Harold Wimpton, the board president, is the kind of guy who'd sell his own kids for a better parking spot at the community center. His refusal to discuss the road project has only fueled the fire. Linda Morrison's inbox is flooded with emails from angry neighbors, and the HOA office's voicemail is so full it's practically begging for mercy. By Saturday morning, Harold shows up at my door, his face redder than a stop sign and his tie askew, looking like a man who's just realized his empire's crumbling. This has gone far enough, Mr. Johnson, he snaps, standing in my driveway like he's auditioning for a villain role. You're spreading misinformation and stirring up panic. Misinformation? I say, crossing my arms. Like the fact that your $125,000 road needs a community vote you never held? Or that it violates federal wetland laws. Harold's jaw tightens, but he sticks to his script. The board has full authority to approve necessary improvements. We don't answer to every homeowner with a grudge. Then answer to the 60 households who want this stopped. I reply, leaning in. Or the EPA, when they find out you're bulldozing protected wetlands without permits. His eyes flicker with something that might be fear, but he doubles down. Our legal counsel has reviewed everything. The project's proceeding. Counsel. I laugh, dark and sharp. The same counsel who didn't notice your easements for emergencies only? Good luck with that. Harold mutters something about frivolous complaints and storms back to his car, his loafers kicking up gravel like a petulant child. I watch him peel out, feeling the first rush of victory. The HOA's armor is cracking, and we're the ones holding the sledgehammer. My porch, once a place of peace, now feels like a war room. The crickets outside singing a battle hymn. The boards made a fatal mistake. They assumed we'd stay quiet. But Meadowbrook's waking up, and we're coming for their clipboards. The HOA's starting to feel the heat, but Harold Wimpton and his merry band of clipboard crusaders are still acting like they're the kings of Meadowbrook Estates, ready to pave my backyard into oblivion. Meanwhile, I'm building an army of neighbors who've had enough of their nonsense, and my dining room's now a full-blown war zone. Papers, pizza boxes, and post-its plotting the downfall of an HOA gone rogue. But the real game-changer comes on a Thursday afternoon, when Sarah Martinez, our resident paralegal-turned-sleuth, calls me from the county courthouse, sounding like she's just found the Holy Grail in a filing cabinet. Jake, you need to see this, she says, her voice crackling with excitement through my phone's tinny speaker. I've got the original HOA incorporation documents from 1987. The board's been playing fast and loose with their authority for years. I meet her at a coffee shop near the courthouse, a cramped place smelling of burnt espresso and desperation. Sarah's waiting at a corner table, surrounded by photocopies that look like they've been buried since Reagan was president. She slides a document across the table, her finger jabbing at a paragraph like it's a murder weapon. Section 7.3 of the Declaration of Covenants, Conditions and Restrictions, she says. The board's power to approve improvements is limited to maintaining and beautifying common areas. Private property easements? Not a whisper. I read it twice, my pulse racing. The HOA can fix sidewalks, trim hedges, maybe slap a new coat of paint on the community center's sad little sign. But bulldozing my backyard for a road? That's as legal as my dog running for mayor. What about the easement itself? I ask, still clutching the hope that this is all a clerical error. Sarah pulls out another gem, the 1987 easement agreement. It's for emergency vehicle access and utility maintenance only, she says, her eyes gleaming like a detective in a noir flick. No mention of community roads or Harold's grand vision of asphalt glory. This is dynamite. The HOA's entire case hinges on a misread easement and a power they don't have. But Sarah's not done. She hands me a faded environmental impact assessment from when Meadowbrook was built. Your backyard's a protected wetland, she says. The original developers routed roads around it to avoid federal permits. Harold's planning to plow right through it. I'm practically vibrating with glee. The board's not just overstepping. They're tap dancing on federal law with steel-toed boots. I spend the evening drafting a letter to the HOA board, my fingers flying over the keyboard as I channel every ounce of sarcasm into polite legalese. Dear esteemed board, I write, it has come to our attention that your $125,000 road project violates your own bylaws, misinterprets a 1987 easement, and flirts with federal felonies. Kindly halt this madness before we all end up on a first-name basis with the EPA. I attach copies of Sarah's documents and send it to every board member, Linda Morrison, and their lawyer, who's probably billing them by the syllable. Monday morning, I'm sipping coffee when my driveway becomes the stage for an HOA showdown. Harold Wimpton rolls up with two board members, Janet Rodriguez and Mike Thompson, looking like a trio of grumpy cats caught in a rainstorm. Harold's tie is crooked, his face a shade of red that screams, I haven't slept in days. We need to talk, he says, like he's about to deliver a mob boss ultimatum. We sit in my living room, my oaks looming through the window like silent witnesses. Harold tries his usual bluster. Our legal counsel assures us the project's legitimate. But his voice cracks, and Janet's fidgeting with her notepad like she's rethinking her life choices. Mike, the newest board member, just stares at his shoes, probably praying for a trapdoor. I slide Sarah's documents across the coffee table. The easements for emergency access only, Harold. Building a road for general traffic isn't covered. And Section 7.3? Your own bylaws say you can't touch private property. Harold's eyes dart to the papers, but he doubles down. Our lawyer says the easement's broad enough for community improvements. I lean forward, grinning like a shark. Harold, have you read the easement? Or are you just parroting a lawyer who's billing you to lose? Silence. Mike shifts uncomfortably, and Janet scribbles something in her notepad. I press on. And the wetlands? You need EPA permits. Ignoring that's not just a fine, it's a federal crime. Janet finally speaks, her voice hesitant. Do we really need those permits? Unless you want to star in an EPA takedown, yeah, I say. Wetland violations come with fines that'd make your road budget look like pocket change. Mike looks up, alarmed. Nobody mentioned permits when we approved this. Harold shoots him a glare that could curdle milk, but the damage is done. The board's unity is cracking faster than a cheap driveway. I play the good cop. Look, nobody wants a lawsuit. Pause the project, get the permits, hold the vote your bylaws require. Easy. Harold's not having it. The board doesn't negotiate with homeowners threatening legal action. He snaps, standing like he's storming out of a bad movie. I'm not threatening. I say, my voice dripping with mock innocence. I'm doing you a favor, pointing out you're about to break federal law. You're welcome. They leave, Harold muttering about activist homeowners, while Janet and Mike exchange glances that scream, we're screwed. After they're gone, I call Rebecca Chun, who's practically giddy when I fax her the documents. This is a goldmine, she says. They're exceeding their authority and ignoring federal regulations. If this goes to court, we've got them. I lean back on my couch, the weight of the fight settling in. Harold's digging in like a toddler refusing bedtime, but we've got the law, the documents, and a neighborhood ready to riot. Outside, my oaks stand tall, unaware of the storm brewing. The HOA's made a fatal error. They thought I'd back down. But I'm just getting started, and I've got a paper trail that's about to bury them. The HOA board thought they could ignore a few pesky documents and a homeowner with a grudge, but they didn't count on Meadowbrook Estates turning into a powder keg with a lit fuse. Word of Sarah's courthouse discoveries, our legal kryptonite, spreads faster than gossip at a PDA meeting. By midweek, every homeowner from the cul-de-sacs to the McMansions knows the board's been playing dictator with a fake crown. They're not just trying to bulldoze my backyard. They're spitting on their own bylaws, federal wetland laws, and the concept of basic human decency. My oaks, those ancient giants marked with orange X's, have become the neighborhood's rallying cry, and I'm the guy holding the megaphone. Maria Santos, our organizational wizard, calls a community meeting for Saturday at the community center. The same overpriced shed the HOA claims their road will improve access to. By 1:45 p.m., the place is a zoo. Every chair's taken, people are crammed against the walls, and a few stragglers are peering through windows like they're staking out a Black Friday sale. The air smells like stale coffee and righteous anger, and I'm loving every second of it. Harold Wimpton and 3 board members, Janet Rodriguez, Mike Thompson, and some guy named Carl who looks like he'd rather be golfing, show up 15 minutes late, strutting in like they're about to grace us with their divine presence. Harold's tie is so tight it's practically a noose, and I can't help but hope it's metaphorical. Maria kicks things off, standing at the podium like a general addressing her troops. She lays out our case with the precision of a surgeon. The board's bypassing a required $50,000 plus expenditure vote, misinterpreting an emergency-only easement, and planning to bulldoze protected wetlands without EPA permits. This isn't just about Jake's backyard, she says, her voice cutting through the room. It's about a board that thinks they can ignore the rules and our rights. This affects every one of us. The crowd's a live wire, buzzing with questions sharper than Linda Morrison's bob. Why wasn't there a vote? Shouts Tom Henderson, still salty about his tomato fine. How do you justify $125,000 without asking us? Demands Mrs. Patterson, her cane tapping the floor like a war drum. What's this about federal violations? Asks a guy in a polo shirt who looks like he just learned the HOA isn't a book club. Harold tries to take control, his voice dripping with the kind of condescension that makes you want to key his Lexus. The board has followed all procedures, he says, adjusting his glasses like he's starring in a bad courtroom drama. Our legal counsel has approved everything. But when pressed for specifics, like, say, the actual text of the easement or proof of permits, he flounders, muttering about complex legal matters and community benefits. It's like watching a man drown in his own ego. Then Mrs. Patterson stands, all 5 feet of her radiating the kind of authority that could silence a riot. I've lived here 23 years, she says, her voice steady as granite. I've watched this board get drunk on power, fining us for flower beds, dictating paint colors, and now trying to steal Jake's land. This road is the last straw. I move for a vote of no confidence in this board. The room explodes in applause, a roar that shakes the community center's cheap paneling. Harold's face goes from red to a shade-eyed call impending stroke. Maria seizes the moment, holding up the HOA bylaws. Article 12 allows a special election to remove board members with a petition signed by 25% of homeowners, she says. Based on this turnout, we'll have those signatures by tonight. People line up to sign the petition, their pens moving like swords in a duel. Harold tries to shout over the chaos, declaring the meeting out of order, but he's drowned out by the crowd's fury. Then, the bombshell, Mike Thompson, the board's newest member, stands up, his face pale and his hands shaking. I need to say something, he says, glancing at Harold like he's betraying a mob boss. I joined this board to help, not hurt. I voted for the road because I trusted the others when they said it was legal. But after seeing the documents and hearing you all, I know we screwed up. The room falls silent, every eye on Mike. Harold looks like he's been slapped with a fish. I'm resigning, effective immediately, Mike continues. And I'm calling for the road project to be halted until we resolve the legal and environmental issues. The crowd erupts again, a mix of cheers and gasps. Janet Rodriguez, who's been quiet all night, stands next. I second Mike's motion to halt the project, she says, her voice firm but her eyes darting to Harold. We need proper legal advice and permits before moving forward. Harold's empire is crumbling faster than a stale cookie. He tries to rally, slamming his fist on the table. This is a mob. The board won't be intimidated. But Mrs. Patterson shuts him down with a single line. This isn't a mob, Harold. This is democracy. You forgot what that looks like. By the end of the night, the petition has 107 signatures, nearly half the neighborhood. Harold storms out, his board members trailing like defeated generals. I stand at the back, Watching neighbors shake hands and swap stories of HOA tyranny, the air electric with rebellion. My oaks, still standing outside, feel like they're cheering us on. We're not just fighting a road anymore. We're fighting for the soul of Meadowbrook. Harold's still out there, licking his wounds and plotting his next move, but he's lost the crowd. And I'm ready to make sure he loses a whole lot more. The community meeting left Harold Wimpton's HOA empire looking like a sandcastle at high tide. But the man's got the stubbornness of a mule and the strategic finesse of a toddler in a tantrum. Instead of waving a white flag, he decides to double down, turning our quiet rebellion into a full-blown HOA horror show. I'm Jake, the guy whose backyard is ground zero for this asphalt apocalypse, and I'm starting to think Harold's less a board president and more a wannabe dictator who missed the memo on how laws work. Tuesday morning, I'm nursing a coffee when a certified letter lands in my mailbox like a grenade with a bow. It's from the HOA's legal counsel, a firm with a name so generic it sounds like they churn out cease and desist between golf rounds. The letter accuses me of interfering with lawful HOA business and spreading defamatory information about the board. It's a masterclass in bad legal writing, vague threats, misspelled statutes, and a vibe that screams we're billing by the word. I call Rebecca Chun, my lawyer, who reads it and cackles. "This is amateur hour," she says, tossing the letter on her desk like it's a used tissue. "They're claiming you defamed them by quoting their own bylaws." I've seen better arguments in a Reddit thread. But Harold's not done playing dirty. That same day, he sends a notice to all 240 households, declaring the road project will proceed as planned, complete with a warning that interfering with lawful construction will bring legal consequences. It's like he's daring the neighborhood to revolt, waving his clipboard like a scepter while ignoring the fact that his entire plan's built on a legal house of cards. The notice is so tone-deaf it could star in a comedy special, and it lights a fire under the community. My phone's blowing up by 7 a.m. with calls from neighbors ready to storm the HOA office with pitchforks. Maria Santos, our organizing guru, counters with a notice of her own, detailing the board's legal missteps and urging everyone to contact their elected officials. It's a digital middle finger, and it's glorious. Then Harold makes his dumbest move yet. Wednesday morning, I wake to the rumble of diesel engines and the sight of construction crews in my backyard, setting up equipment like they're about to film a post-apocalyptic blockbuster. A bulldozer's parked where my hammock should be, and a guy in a hard hat is waving a work order signed by Harold himself, authorizing preliminary site preparation. My oaks, those 150-year-old sentinels, stand silently as orange stakes mock their existence. I'm one deep breath away from hurling my coffee mug at the nearest backhoe. I call the police, and Officer Rodriguez rolls up in 10 minutes, his cruiser's lights flashing like a low-budget action flick. He's calm, assessing the scene like a referee at a bar fight. The crew's got a legit work order, but they're on my property without permission. "This is a civil matter," Rodriguez says, scratching his notepad. "The HOA claims they have rights. You say they don't. We can't arrest anyone, but we can ask them to stop until it's sorted." The foreman, Dave, a grizzled guy who looks like he's built roads since the dinosaurs roamed, is surprisingly chill. "I don't care about HOA drama," he says, wiping sweat from his brow. "I build roads, I get paid. But if there's a property dispute, I'm not touching this job until it's clear." He hands me his card, offering to testify about construction costs or wetland violations. 30 years in this game, and I've never seen a project ignore EPA rules like this, he says, packing up his crew and leaving my yard looking like a construction-themed art installation. Harold's gambit backfires spectacularly. Instead of scaring me, he's turned my backyard into a neighborhood spectacle, with neighbors snapping photos and whispering about that idiot board president. By evening, Janet Rodriguez, the board member who backed halting the project, calls me, her voice low and tense. "Harold's losing it," she says. "He held an emergency board meeting today, tried to boot me for disloyalty and undermining decisions. He's also shopping for a new lawyer to push the road through. Can he kick you off?" I ask, pacing my living room, the smell of last night's pizza lingering. "Not legally," she says. But he's desperate. He's acting like this road's his legacy, not a lawsuit waiting to happen. Harold's digging his own grave, but the real jackpot comes Thursday morning when Mrs. Patterson, our 80-year-old secret weapon, shows up at my door with a folder thicker than a phone book. "I've been busy," she says, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. "Used to work at the county assessor's office. Still have friends there. Look at this." She hands me property records from 1987, showing the easement Harold's banking on was recorded with the wrong boundaries, an error so glaring it's practically a neon sign saying, "You're screwed." The actual easement is 50 feet south of where the road's planned. My backyard, not even close to covered. "Mrs. Patterson," I say, grinning like a kid on Christmas, "you just won this war." "Not yet," she says, her eyes twinkling. "But I brought the ammo." I faxed the documents to Rebecca, who's so excited she nearly drops the phone. "This is a slam dunk," she says. "The HOA has no claim to your land." Harold's entire case is built on a typo. The tide's turning, but Harold's too stubborn to see it. He's out there, plotting his next bad move, while I've got a neighborhood army, a legal ace, and a mistake that's about to bury him. Harold Wimpton's reaction to Mrs. Patterson's bombshell, that his precious easement is a 50-foot fiction, proves he's not just stubborn, he's living in a parallel universe where facts are optional and his HOA crown is forged in delusion. And I'm the guy whose backyard's been the stage for this suburban circus, and I'm now armed with a legal nuke. Proof the HOA has no claim to my land. My oaks, still scarred with orange X's, stand like defiant giants, and Meadowbrook Estates is buzzing with the kind of energy you get when a neighborhood smells blood in the water. Harold's response: "Call an emergency board meeting Friday evening to address frivolous claims about property boundaries and finalize construction schedules." The man's doubling down like a gambler betting his house on a busted flush. By 7 p.m., the community center's packed tighter than a Black Friday checkout line. Neighbors spill into the hallway, clutching coffee cups and grudges, their whispers sharp with anticipation. The air smells of cheap carpet cleaner and revolution, and I'm at the back, my stack of documents feeling like a loaded gun. Harold struts in with his remaining board members, minus Mike Thompson, who jumped ship, and Janet Rodriguez, who's teetering on mutiny. He's got a new lawyer, a slick guy in a suit that screams, "I charge $500 an hour to lose," and Carl, the board's resident golf enthusiast, who looks like he'd rather be anywhere else. Harold's tie is so tight it's practically cutting off his brain's oxygen supply, which might explain his next move. He opens the meeting with a speech that's equal parts bluster and denial. "The board has reviewed all alleged concerns," he declares, gripping the podium like it's keeping him upright. "The road project serves the community's best interests and will proceed as planned. Our new legal counsel has confirmed our authority." He gestures to the lawyer, who nods with the confidence of someone who hasn't read the fine print. I stand, raising my hand like a kid in class who knows the teacher's about to get schooled. Harold tries to ignore me, but the crowd's not having it. "Let him speak," shouts Tom Henderson, his voice booming over the murmurs. Others join in, a chant that feels like a guillotine dropping. Harold relents, his face a shade of red-eyed call pre-heart attack. I walk to the front, holding Mrs. Patterson's property records like a holy relic. "Harold," I say, my voice calm, but laced with enough sarcasm to curdle milk, "these documents show your easements 50 feet south of my backyard. The road you're planning? It's on land you have no claim to. Care to explain?" I hand him the papers, and he glances at them like they're junk mail. "These are outdated," he snaps, tossing them aside. "Our counsel has confirmed the easement covers the construction area." "Your counsel's wrong," I say, grinning like a shark smelling blood. "The 1987 records are clear. The easement's boundaries were misrecorded. Your road's dead in the water." The crowd murmurs, and Harold's eyes dart to his lawyer, who's suddenly very interested in his notepad. I press on. "And let's not forget the wetlands. You need EPA permits you don't have, or the $125,000 you spent without a community vote, which violates your own bylaws." Should I keep going? Harold's jaw clenches so hard I'm waiting for a tooth to pop out. The board has full authority to proceed, he says, but his voice wavers, and the room smells his weakness. That's when Sarah Martinez stands, her paralegal instincts honed like a blade. Harold, she says, holding up the HOA's financial records, you've spent $47,000 on this project already. Consultants, surveys, that fancy new lawyer. All without the required homeowner vote. Care to explain that? The crowd roars, and Harold's face cycles through colors I didn't know existed. Mrs. Patterson, our octogenarian warrior, piles on. I've lived here 23 years, she says, her cane tapping the floor like a judge's gavel. I've seen boards come and go, but none as reckless as this one. You're not just breaking rules, you're breaking trust. The room erupts in applause, and Harold tries to shout over it, declaring the meeting out of order. But it's too late. Janet Rodriguez, who's been silent, stands and drops her own bomb. I'm calling for an immediate halt to the project, she says, avoiding Harold's glare. We need to review these documents and get proper permits. This has gone too far. Carl, the golfer, nods reluctantly, leaving Harold alone at the podium, his empire crumbling faster than a sandcastle in a storm. The petition for a special election to remove the board, already signed by 107 homeowners, is circulating again, and people are adding their names with glee. Maria Santos collects the signatures, her clipboard a stark contrast to Linda Morrison's, who's conspicuously absent, probably hiding in her office polishing her bob. As the meeting ends, Harold makes one last desperate play, cornering me as the crowd disperses. This isn't over, Jake, he hisses, his breath smelling of desperation and bad coffee. The board will fight this. Harold, I say, leaning in with a smile sharp enough to cut glass. You don't have a board anymore. Mike's gone, Janet's flipped, Carl's checked out, and the neighborhood's done with you. Maybe it's time to trade your gavel for a reality check. He storms off, his loafers clicking on the linoleum like a retreating army. I step outside, the night air cool against my skin. The community's awake, and Harold's running out of moves. But I know he's not done yet. He's too stubborn to quit, too proud to admit he's wrong. The final battle's coming, and I'm ready to bury his road project in the same wetland he tried to pave. Harold Wimpton's empire is in tatters, his HOA board reduced to a sad trio of loyalists clinging to their clipboards like life rafts in a hurricane. And I'm that guy whose backyard sparked a neighborhood uprising, and after months of battling Meadowbrook Estates' wannabe dictator, I'm standing on the edge of victory. My oaks, those 150-year-old giants still wearing their orange X's like battle scars, loom over my yard as a reminder of what's at stake. The community's behind me, armed with Sarah's legal bombshells and Mrs. Patterson's misrecorded easement, but Harold's too stubborn, or too delusional, to surrender. The final showdown's here, and it's about to get gloriously messy. The Friday meeting left Harold looking like a man who'd bet his soul on a losing hand, but he's not done swinging. Monday morning, I get a call from Rebecca Chun, my lawyer, who sounds like she's just won the legal lottery. Harold's new counsel filed a motion to dismiss our claims, she says, her voice dripping with glee. They're arguing the board's authority is unassailable. It's adorable, Jake. Their motion's so flimsy I could use it as kindling. What's their angle? I ask, pacing my kitchen, the smell of burnt toast lingering from a breakfast I was too wired to eat. They're doubling down on the easement, claiming the 1987 typo doesn't matter because the board's intent overrides it. They also say the wetlands issue is speculative since they haven't started construction yet. It's like they're begging for a judge to laugh them out of court. Rebecca's already drafting a response, citing the misrecorded easement, the lack of a community vote, and the EPA's wetland regulations. We've got them dead to rights, she says. I'm also requesting an injunction to stop any construction until this is resolved. Harold's about to learn what federal oversight feels like. But Harold's not waiting for a judge. Tuesday, I'm woken by the roar of engines again. Another construction crew's in my backyard, this time with a backhoe tearing up my lawn like it's auditioning for a disaster movie. I grab my phone, snap photos, and call Officer Rodriguez, who's probably got my number on speed dial by now. He arrives with a partner, their cruiser kicking up dust as neighbors gather like spectators at a gladiator match. Dave, the foreman from last week, is back, looking as thrilled as a man stuck in a DMV line. Harold called us back, he says, shaking his head. Said it's all cleared up. I told him I'm not touching this without a court order. Rodriguez orders the crew to stop, citing the ongoing dispute. The workers pack up, grumbling, leaving my yard looking like a moonscape. I'm livid, but Dave slips me a tidbit before he leaves. Harold's been calling every contractor in town, trying to find someone desperate enough to start work. He's burning through HOA funds like it's monopoly money. That evening, Maria Santos organizes an emergency neighborhood rally on the community center's lawn. Over 150 homeowners show up, waving signs that read "No road, no way," and "Harold must go." Mrs. Patterson, our octogenarian MVP, takes the megaphone, her voice cutting through the dusk like a blade. This board spent $60,000 on a project with no legal basis, she says, holding up Sarah's financial records. They're bankrupting our community for a road nobody wants. The crowd roars, and I spot Linda Morrison peering from the HOA office window, her perfect bob trembling. Sarah steps up next, announcing we filed a formal complaint with the state's HOA Oversight Board and contacted the EPA about the wetland violations. Harold's not just breaking our rules, she says. He's flirting with federal charges. Then comes the kicker. Bob Chun, our engineer, reveals he's been in touch with a local news outlet. Channel 7's running a story tomorrow, he says, grinning. They're calling it HOA Gone Wild, the road to ruin. Harold's face is going to be all over the 6 o'clock news. By Wednesday, the story airs, complete with aerial shots of my scarred backyard and interviews with angry neighbors. The reporter digs into Harold's spending spree, flashing documents we leaked showing $70,000 in unauthorized expenses. Social media explodes, with hashtag Meadowbrook Mutiny trending on X. Harold's name becomes a local punchline, and the HOA office is besieged by calls from homeowners demanding his resignation. Thursday morning, Rebecca calls with news. The courts granted our injunction, halting all construction pending a hearing. The judge wasn't impressed with Harold's motion, she says. Called it speculative at best. We've got him on the ropes. That afternoon, Harold makes his final stand. He shows up at my door, alone, his tie gone and his shirt wrinkled like he's been sleeping in his car. Jake, he says, his voice hoarse. Let's settle this. The board's willing to relocate the road if you drop the legal action. I lean against my doorframe, savoring the moment. Relocate it where, Harold? Another homeowner's backyard? You've got no easement, no permits, and no board. Mike's gone, Janet's flipped, Carl's probably golfing. You're out of moves. He flinches, and for the first time, I see defeat in his eyes. The community needs this road, he mutters, but it's a whisper of his old bluster. The community needs a board that follows the rules. I say, my voice sharp. Step down, Harold. Save what's left of your dignity. He shuffles away, and I know it's over. The next day, the HOA board announces Harold's resignation, citing personal reasons. The road project's officially scrapped, and a special election is scheduled to replace the board. At the victory party in my backyard, catered by the Hendersons' famous barbecue, Mrs. Patterson raises a glass to my oaks. To Jake, she says, and to never letting bullies win. I look at my trees, free of their orange marks, and feel the weight lift. Meadowbrook's ours again, and Harold's probably updating his resume somewhere, wondering where it all went wrong. As for me, I'm planning a new hammock, because this fight's done, and my oak's still standing. Thank you for being with us. Please share in the comments where you are watching from, and whether you liked everything, and see you next time.